love your logo. I love the name, Rough Cuts. It's very. Who did the graphic?
It was the New York Festivals team.
Nice job. Yeah. Nice job, guys.
I came up with the name, they liked it, and then they designed it.
Top Shelf. I have a couple notes, but we'll get back to that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
it's the rough version.
Yeah, it's the rough version.
Yeah.
I like it. So.
Really appreciate you letting us use your studio and your time to do this.
Well, of course.
I've heard that you did a couple of things that are amazing, and I'd love to talk about all those things.
Let's. I don't know if they're amazing, but I definitely am old in the business. So though I feel pretty young, I went to a concert last night on a Monday night. It's something about living in New York City and the creativity that is on a Monday night in New York City. And you go and you see artists performing, and whether it's a visual artist or a musical artist, it's just great to be here in the city for that very reason. As a creative person, it just, I remember moving from Boulder, which I loved working at Crispin, and living in Boulder was a great life. But you definitely got comfortable in that life. So having then got the opportunity to work at McCann in New York and help that company for a bit, I just felt alive. I felt it was back to being a real creative person. And I feel that same thing, and AI is a big reason why I've been reinvigorated creatively.
I love that. And believe it or not, you're actually the first creative that we bring to the podcast.
Who's been on this podcast?
We had a few, CMOs and a few just marketing
Anybody
people.
I know?
Yeah, you met our AngelSoft client that did our Poditudities project recently.
One of my favorite.
Yeah, so she was one of the people that we interviewed. But you're the first creative, which is kind of, I guess, weird for a podcast about creativity sponsored by a creative festival.
Very honored to be number one. Yeah.
But that's a big part of it, I think. So you still believe that New York is one of the most creative cities in the world?
The most. It just has a level of tension, which I think tension is always a big part of a creative brief. And New York is just full of tension. So it's loud. It's not always the cleanest. It's expensive. All those things that give it an element of tension, but the reward of it, I think, is outweighs the tension.
Totally. And I'm a big believer that we need a little bit of chaos to be creative. Like, I think...
For sure.
And I wanted to ask you, like, in the age of scale and productivity and efficiency and AI and algorithms and all those things, what is the role of just creativity with a capital C or instincts or whatever you want to call it?
Well, I like chaos. I like when you said chaos. And I'm a giant... believer in AI, how it's going to transform how we create for the world's biggest brands, and we're deep into it, and I think it's an incredible tool. But I've also cautioned everybody about, like, let's not think we can remove the chaos part of creativity.
Yeah.
AI is a great tool for creative people to come up with better ideas, get better insights, all the things that the computer was, and digital photography, all these advancements. But you've got to bake in a little bit of the chaos. That's what makes the magic happen a bit.
Yeah.
So, you might have more time now to experiment and fail a bit because AI is faster and will help you get to some of these things quicker. But if you take out the chaos, well, we're going to end up with, I think, bland.
I agree.
So whoever's making scopes and whoever's figuring out the commercial part of it, like, we have to continue to bake in a bit of the chaos and a bit of the messiness of creativity, because that's where the true magic comes. And I think AI is going to help more and more people and more brands be able to put things out into the world. So the premium is going to be on the idea creation, and that still comes from human creativity. So I think that's the most important thing for us to remember, is that AI in the hands of brilliant masters of their crafts become exponentially, a more powerful agent to deliver breakthrough ideas. So if you're a young person, or if you're a person as old as me, and you're not figuring out how to take AI and make it your best friend, you're missing a giant opportunity. And so much of it is free, and so much of it is available. It just takes your time, and it takes your curiosity. So I would say that's the most important thing. And I think certainly working at WPP, you'll have the most opportunity to get training, to be involved in challenges and programs, and be part of the system if you want it to be. But if you don't, it's like anything. Do you know an art director who doesn't use a computer?
Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist, And I think the same will be for people who don't want to use AI as the number one tool in their tool belt. That's a terrible phrase. I'm going to come up with something better than that. If they're not using, we're going to edit. If you don't edit that shit out, I will kill you all.
So that's in Scott. Make a note.
Scott, make a note, take it out. No, but it's like I'm so passionate about it because it's only been like 8 months or 9 months for me where I flipped the switch. Mm-hmm. I went full in on it, and now I'm addicted to it because it's made me exponentially more creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's undeniable that it's that once in a century type of revolution.
So I'm hoping people and our people and the whole industry and the whole world will see that this is not a scary thing. Mm-hmm. This is the most exciting thing that's ever, certainly in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And we'll help you if you're curious about it, but you're nervous about how do I use it. I'll sit with you.
Yeah, and pairing that knowledge around these new tools with the love for the process, the actual love for the game, like that would make any creative unstoppable, in my opinion. But you always talk about the curators out there, right? Like the tastemakers. So tell us more about the role of those types of creatives moving forward.
I think the people that are in CCO roles, your job is always to be, the positive force in anything we're doing, whether it's a pitch or leading a brand or leading an assignment or leading a department or leading a company, being positive and having the energy and always being on. It's a hard, draining thing to be, but that is a giant role to play. But, I don't know. I get sometimes confused as to what the role might be when it comes to the future, right? Because AI will solve a lot of our problems, but who's choosing? Will AI be the chooser of what is the right work, what is the best idea, how to tweak that idea? And I think, history has shown, whether it's Pharrell being chosen by Louis Vuitton or Rick Rubin not being able to play an instrument, but somehow knowing how to choose hits, and Pharrell not being able to sew a pattern is the head creative for Louis Vuitton men. There's something about their taste level that is the reason why big companies are choosing them to lead and artists are choosing people like Rick Rubin to produce their albums.
Yeah.
Because they know how to produce the hits and they know what's going to pop in culture and what's going to land in culture. So I do think creative people and senior creative people more and more will be tastemakers and have to curate tons of ideas that might come from the collaboration of human creativity and AI creativity together. Someone has to be the tastemaker and say, that's the one we're going to do. Let's just tweak it here, tweak it there. I don't think AI would have come up with Got Milk.
Right.
I do think there's always going to be an element of creativity that is going to be from left field, and AI is based off, a lot of the input.
Yeah. And not just that, but the input also, like AI, at least the way it is right now, right?
Yeah.
In its current version of AI, like it still needs a lot of that input. Like it's still in a way just replicating what was done before, right? And you're still going to need humans to do that.
But it's fun.
To basically predict the future and create the future. Right?
I'm on it all day long, because we have our own operating system, WPP Open. And
what are you most excited about it? AI in general.
It's my partner. As a CCO, you probably feel the same way. Sometimes there's nowhere to go. You don't really want to go to the teams below you when you're lost, which is often for me. And you might not have anybody above you to help. You have Gab and you have me. You have some people maybe you can go to, but as a CCO, you want to be able to solve it. And AI has become a partner for me. So every day I wake up, I've got a couple questions like, hey, what if we did this? And AI just gives me back thoughts and positionings maybe that I hadn't thought of that I can riff off. So I use it as my partner first and foremost.
That's awesome, because I do feel like I find my job pretty complicated at times. Like, and I'm relatively
when you're dealing with
like,
Gab, your boss Gab, he's a very complicated man. So
correct.
You might need 2 AIs just to deal with him.
And I think just the complexities of being a CCO, and I only manage one office.
Yeah.
You know, like I have one office in one network, and I have my team and I have my client. Like my responsibilities are relatively clear to me, with all the complexities that come with it, but relatively clear. And I keep imagining you that, you know,
In
you
this
don't,
job?
yeah, in your job where you have all the responsibility for the whole network and very little control over
Yes.
it. I think AI can sometimes, I imagine, help.
Well, I think it's more helpful for me personally if I'm trying to crack something. You know, we're working on a WPP AI campaign that's going to go out into the world. So I've been working on that pretty closely. So that's been very helpful in, you know, sometimes I have a sentence I want rewritten and I'll just put it in. Oh, that's an interesting way of phrasing it. But I write it myself, and then I use AI to maybe help me with certain parts of it. But the job in general of being the CCO of WPP is much more a job about influence over authority and inspiration and visible leadership. It's less about the authority, though when we do well, I get a lot of the credit, but when we don't do well, I get a lot of the blame too. So you're right. It's very difficult to not have the control you want, because I've hired great people to run these companies, you know, Liz and Gab and you and Debbie was here, but you know, like, so I've got people that are so capable. Now, I always say hire great people and get out of the way, but that's not true always. It's like hire great people, get out of the way, but also help people be successful, you know, along the way. Because I never think it's fair to assume one person can change the trajectory of a company. It needs many people. Like, it doesn't matter if we're great creative leaders, if we don't have CEOs who care deeply about creativity, and deeply about creativity being the, you know, force multiplier for growth and for success, well, then it doesn't matter. So I joined because Mark Reed said, I want to be the most creative company in the world. Great. We're creative people, very simple. That's an easy thing for me to decide. But if you look at VML, you look at Gray, and you look at Ogilvy, they all have amazing CEOs at the top. And then you get into the New York office or the London office, like the CEOs in those also care about creativity. And I think that's why we've been so successful creatively, is the CEOs have cared just as much as the creative leaders.
Completely agree.
So that's, you know, then when that trickles down, then everybody understands this is not only part of your job, your KPIs to deliver creatively, it's also how we continue to grow. And growth is, we're all trying to grow, you know, it's a hard business right now.
Yeah.
We're all trying to grow. And I think the fact that we've advanced so far on technology, and we're deep in AI, and creatively we are, you know, always close to the top, if not the top, I think that will play well for us as AI continues. And we're betting on a different type of media model around AI versus, you know, ID aggregation. So I think in general we have the right plan. It's taking us a little while to get to it, but I think once we finally realize it, it will be the right plan, and the thing that will sort of make us, you know, very successful in the future.
Absolutely. But one thing that I give you a lot of credit for, like directly,
is my hats.
Well, that too, and the beard now, like something new.
His
that
beard,
I, give you credit for.
I grew this beard to, no, I'm not going to say why, because I don't want to break the law.
It suits you.
Break the law, yeah.
But I give you a lot of credit for not only hiring great people, but you are very good, in my opinion, at creating a sense of community with the people that you hire. And not just people that you hire, but the people that you find are contributing to creativity in any way, shape, or form. Like I've you know, you've gave me great advice in the last couple of years that we've been working together many times. So I just get that sense that you're, and I think it's part of your role at, you know, the top of an organization to like foster that sense of creative community. But I think you do that very well. So how do you do that at such a large scale?
It's a great question.
Because sometimes it's hard for me to do it on my local scale. And I mean, to get everybody on board, to believe in what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do things, the ambition that we're trying to, all the things that we're trying to achieve. It's very hard to get people on board. And I think you're very good at doing that at such a massive scale that it blows my mind sometimes.
Well, I mean, the key is to get the great people, you know, that you trust to, they know the scoreboard. You know, we have to be successful. We have to. It's not camp. You know, we have to win business. We have to win in culture. Win with our current clients. all those things, win with society. So we have people that understand the job, and if we don't succeed, we're not going to be around for a long time. So you have everybody going in the same direction. But I think the community, I do think we can be a nice place and nice people and still be the best. I think that's a real, and at McCann, we did that. We were the number one creative lead, and I think we were the best place to work.
Yeah.
And I think we have that here too. I do think we have nice people, and maybe we need to be maybe a little bit more ruthless in some cases, but I'd rather be relentless than ruthless. And that's a good quality to have. And I think that's why I think you have a lot of that, certainly in the creative community, you have everybody, we get together every month virtually. Sometimes we see each other in person, but virtually we get together every month, all the global CCOs, and we just talk about work, but we don't share work. We're not sitting around comparing work. We're all part of the same team. And who knows, as we get further and further down the line, like how we might be cross-pollinating creative people, work on this project, work on this project. So I think it's important that we have a more fluid creative community, that we're all working together. On occasion, sometimes there's a WPP pitch that multiple agencies will be involved in. And the better we get at that, I think long term, it's probably what more our clients are looking for, the best of WPP. Now, I still think the best of WPP is agencies are hired to do a certain project or certain thing, and when other agencies have to come in and maybe help on commerce or help on a production part of it, that's probably the better way versus I don't want to pull one person from one agency, one person to create a super team. I don't think that works as well.
Yeah.
But I do think more and more the creative assignments, we might be pulling from different agencies for the best creative people to work on something. So I think it'll be exciting for anybody at WPP in any of the agencies creatively, because I think there's going to be more and more opportunities, because more and more clients are going to be, brands are coming to WPP in search of creative breakthrough ideas.
Yeah.
Or breakthrough creative ideas.
And I'm very naive about it in a way, but I do believe that when you do that right, you see it in the work, right?
Yeah.
And like I told you, like a lot of the people that we interviewed here in the podcast are CMOs and people that work on the client side. And the word community came up a lot. Like I think every brand in a way is trying to build community around their brand.
So they're trying to build their community.
Yeah, exactly.
What was their point on the community? Did they have
I think it's
insight?
that, especially in the context of social and everything that we're going through right now, like how media is changing dramatically. It's not just advertisers talking at people anymore. Like you're trying to get people on board to like build a community around your message, your brand, your product, whatever. So it's not just trying to build community internally at our company, but how do we then use the same sort of like some of those things that we learn in that process, how do we use that in the brand building side of things? Like how do we build a community around our brands in a way that feels relatable and like relevant for the audience? You know?
Yeah, I think you like even Gray. Even I think you guys have built a pretty awesome community. I don't know if it's just two Brazilian guys, and you and Gab being here in New York, and obviously Gab being the global CCO. I was like, what? It's funny how many Brazilian leaders we have
seems to be a thing now
in WPP, let alone the industry. And I remember asking the question, why do we think, and maybe more Latin leaders than just Brazilian? And someone had a great answer. It's like, we're brilliant storytellers. And I was like, oh, that's a really good insight. Do you think that's true? Do you think
absolutely
the Brazilians are great storytellers?
I think it's that and just the work ethic. I think that they bring, not that other nationalities don't have work ethics. That's not what I mean. But there's something about coming from a smaller industry, a very competitive industry, where advertising specifically is still a cool job to have. That it just attracts crazy, great talent. And you have to be on top of your game if you want to break in and stay in the industry. That, it just creates this pool of talent that I think it's gold, really, and it's becoming one of our biggest imports, apparently.
And when you talk about community, I feel like the Brazilian creative community in advertising is the strongest in the world,
right?
By far. Like, I don't think America has the same. We're all friends. We all like each other and support each other, but it's not like, oh, we're the American, or there's London or England has the same, or Spain. It really feels like Brazil, even more than Argentina, like, is the one country that has this community. Maybe you're all competitive against each other. Maybe behind the scenes,
I think to a certain point we are. Like, but the creative competition, I think it's most of the time, a positive type of competition, right? You're always trying to outdo yourself, first of all. I think great creatives always have an element of that, or trying to outdo yourself and be the one thing that you just did that you're proud of, you feel like you can do better. And that definitely kind of like expands throughout the community and just gets everybody to just try their best. You've, like I said in the beginning, done a couple of things that, I admired and I'm sure you're proud of. What do you think is the one that really sticks with you, not just in terms of how successful it was, but a lesson they learned from it in the process of it? Because just to kind of...
Well, I've talked about it so much that it's so boring for anybody who's listened to me on a podcast, and I wish I had a better answer, but I've been lucky to be a part of so many great things, created by so many amazing clients and creative people and strategy people and production people and account people. It takes a village to make these ideas that are truly iconic. But the girl on Wall Street, the fearless girl, it's just hard to not point to that every time because, that's probably going to outlive me and you. Like, it'll still be there, hopefully. It's permanent. And there's statues that are, hundreds and hundreds of years old. So I do think these ideas that might have an impact well beyond your time on Earth is the thing to be most proud of.
And what have you learned in the process of making that thing personally?
Well, I mean,
what is the thing
the team that was Lizzie and Tally, amazing creative team, and worked for Tom and Sean, and Eric Silver was very involved in this idea. And I think the thing I learned from it was perseverance and not just crying in the corner. I mean, I always say that the modern creative who takes feedback and doesn't cry in the corner, but takes feedback from a client who knows the brand way better than you know the brand, and turns it into gold, will be the winners. Like, you have to be able to take feedback and say, okay, I understand what you're saying. How do I take that and not say, well, it only can be this way or not? And that's, in that case, the original idea was not a little girl. It was a female bull, which was no such thing as a cow. And the team went back and, the standoff was the thing, and came back with a little girl, their hands on her hips, called the Fearless Girl. Like, you see it now, you can't imagine it was something else that was better. I think Lizzie and Tally, if they ever listen to this, they will still think that the female bull was better. But brilliant creatives.
We'll never know.
That was just like fighting to make it happen. And Devika, who's the CEO of Ogilvy, she was basically the account person, one of the account people pushing this through. Stephen Tisdale, genius CMO, fighting. You needed a champion inside of State Street Global Advisors, and Stephen Tisdale, he was the champion and made it happen. So you needed all those people, but we needed to be able to not compromise, but be able to work the problem and to bring back, and can we come up with an even better idea once we got the feedback, which was pretty I think, fair feedback, from the original idea. So I think that's the lesson of, like, never give up on something, but don't keep bringing something back without changing it. If it's rejected, the definition of insanity is, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You have to be willing to change an idea, not for the worse, but somehow for the better.
And there's something about, ideas like that. Everybody knows the results. Everybody admires like the final package, and obviously it's great. But there's something about the love for the process of making it, right? That I think...
It's just funny because I was just upstairs, we're doing a pitch for something, and I was sitting with the new business team and some strategy people, and we were going over the brief, and I was like, it's like... It just reminded me, I don't get often to be in those early meetings, how fun the business is, and how fun the process is to use your brain and use creativity, especially now when there's more tools for you to do it in a better way, in a faster way, in a more efficient way, how fun it is. And that's what I hope. And we have, we're back to the office 4 days a week now. I got a lot of press, slow news day in my opinion, but when you come in and the energy, you feel it. And I walk through these halls on Gray or VML or Ogilvy or AKQA or Hogarth or Group M, and the place is buzzing. Like, it reminds me of how it was when I was young, not just how it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's forced me in a good way to even get deeper into some of these things without obviously mucking up, the process that our great teams are already doing. I try to be additive, not disruptive in a lot of ways. Except on the brief. I feel like the briefing is the thing I'm most interested in. If we get the brief right, the work is easy.
Agree.
If we get the brief wrong, I always say that brief, and I would say to whoever's creating a brief or helping to create a brief, and I say to clients, I said, listen, that brief is imagine there's a junior creative team that has to show Thiago work at 9 a.m. and it's 12 p.m. That brief is either your worst nightmare or your best friend. Make it their best friend. Make it simple. Make it have a point. Make it have tension. Make it be on one page in 12-point type, not 8-point type. We have to turn this brief into communication. Sometimes it's 30 seconds. Sometimes it's a print ad. Sometimes it's a digital experience. Sometimes it's a product. But we have to do it. If I am telling you that I can't make sense of it as a CEO of WPP, I promise you a junior team can't. So let's make sure that brief leaves, when it gets delivered to creative people, is so inspiring that the answer is already in it. My favorite story is this, one of my favorite campaigns was Whopper Virgins, done for Burger King at Crispin in the 2000s. And I don't know who the planner was, maybe Ashley Alsop or Colin Drummond. Whatever it was, they put the phrase Whopper Virgins in the brief. And James Dawson Hollis and Andrew Ure, they just took it and said, okay, we're going to make an idea out of that.
That's amazing.
So as a planner, as an account person, as a creative leader, when you're writing these briefs, put the answers in the brief so the creative people can then maybe take that and go make it into magic versus getting something that feels so convoluted or so confusing or trying to fit 50 pounds of stuff in a 25-pound bag. Make it the inspiring part, which we have great strategy people here, and we do that here. And I just sat in a great briefing, and I was very inspired by the brief. As I said, okay, I can make something out of that.
Yeah.
But I had one tweak.
No, of course, always. But there is something, I think most people that are starting now in the industry in the last 5 years, they haven't experienced being in an office and surrounded by people that are smarter, funnier, better at them in certain things. And it's very hard to replicate that dynamic, I think, remotely. I'm sure we can get it done, but when you're trying to do
it's like doing this podcast. Yeah, I thought this was going to be on Zoom. I was so sad.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we doing this on Zoom? We have this studio because the energy you get from, and just the vibe you get from just another human.
No, and to that point,
important.
you hear one word sometimes, just by a casual conversation with somebody in the room. It could be a planner, it could be an account person, but one word unlocks everything for you. If you're lucky and if you have a great strategy team, that one word will be in the brief, right? Yeah. But more often than not, it's not, right? Yeah. Sometimes it comes up in a casual thing. Somebody's talking about the problem that they were trying to solve that weekend, and it just so happens that that thing that they said unlocks the solution for this problem that you're working on. Yeah. And that's definitely comes to you more often when you're in a room with people.
I'm psyched for the business. I hope everybody is listening will also be excited by what's coming. Yeah. Obviously, we're in a bit of a economic turmoil today or this week, but we've been through a lot of these things before, and creativity is usually something that rises to the top in bad times. Yeah. A lot of ways, whether it's making people feel good or making brands feel important and meaningful in people's lives.
I always love this. Sometimes.
I always love this notion that Suzanne Powers, my ex-partner at McCann, and we helped create, which was about creating meaning, helping these brands be meaningful in people's lives. I think it's more relevant than ever. I think people are searching for brands to help them through some of these hard times, whether it's literally providing goods and services, but more the stability in their lives that governments are just not doing or just can't afford to or don't have the will to do. So I do think it's an important moment for us, again, to realize we are agents for these brands, and these brands are wildly important in people's lives. And how do we help them show up the best? That's a great job to have. It's not just a frivolous job of creating ads. You're literally creating meaning in people's lives because these brands are more meaningful than governments are.
I completely agree, because these brands are also already ingrained in people's lives in a way that politics might not be, right? We have a Coca-Cola on our table right now, and that brand means something to some people.
How much is P&G in people's lives? And Verizon is literally the thing that is your operating system for your life, So you're right. These things they
mean something.
They mean something. and they are important. So
Yeah, and the way you tap into that meeting, that emotional connection that people may or may not have with the brand, and maybe the lack of emotional connection is also an opportunity that you can tap into. But the fact is, they're there. Those brands are there.
So
and they can have a say on things.
So I take it seriously. I hope people take it seriously too, because I do think we have a duty. Certainly in hard times during the pandemic, we definitely had a duty. But even now, when things are a little bit unsteady in this country, if not the world, we do have a great responsibility to help brands be stable and help brands thrive, so people can thrive also.
Speaking of thriving, WPP hosts won for the third year in a row. Was at the top of the WARC rankings.
WPP.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, third year in a row.
How does that happen? 3 years in a row. Like what's
a
the
lot of
secret?
we pay everybody. We pay everybody off.
Yeah.
It's a
that
very.
Helps.
It's a very. No, we listen. Work is wildly important to our clients and important to us. How do I say this? Awards matter until they don't matter, but they are certainly the byproduct of doing the right thing for our clients. So I think we do real work for our biggest clients. Yes, we do charity, which is important, but really we focus on how do we do our best work for our large clients, and whether they're a large client in a country or a global client, like it really is important to make sure that like we're doing the best work for the clients that are really putting the work out into the world, spending the media dollars. That's the business we're in. I want young people to understand that. Like, I don't mind you winning an award for a charity. That's important. But you'll have a great night if you win for a charity. You'll have a great career if you win for P&G.
Yeah.
You win for Verizon. You win for Microsoft. You win for any of these brands that are out there that are really impacting people's lives. And that's the business we're in. So I always tell people I love charity on the weekends.
That's awesome. And what do you think the festivals themselves can do to continue to be relevant, not just for our industry, but for just the marketing industry at large?
Well, I would continue giving Rob Reilly great gear. This New York Festival's hat. I mean, this is so baller. I love it. My wife.
Now every single client out there will
I'll
get
need another
too.
one because my wife will want this because the white is cute on my wife. But yeah, it's. Listen, again, they matter until they don't matter. Mm-hmm. And I think it's as long as the shows continue to set themselves up to reward real brands for doing real work, whether it's in media, whether it's in PR,
and
whether it's in
impact,
production,
right?
with real impact. I think that's the most important thing to stay relevant, because brands are expecting results. And if we don't have results, then what's the point of doing something? So I don't really like to talk about things that haven't had great results. I talk a lot about Coca-Cola because the work we were able to do with Coca-Cola led to, was one of the contributing factors to Coca-Cola continuing to grow and to grow and to grow. So that's why it's such a great, case study for us, is because you have a brave client who does innovative work and buys innovative ideas, but has a very clear growth plan. Mm-hmm. And if the work isn't part of making that happen, and the great work isn't part of making that happen, then it's a waste of time. So I do think, while they're not a sponsor of this podcast, it's important that the shows continue to recognize when brands are doing really innovative work that also lead to successful business results.
Yeah.
That's how this shows stay fit.
I could not agree more.
Great trophies on New York festivals. I like the trophies. Yeah,
I liked it when they had the projector on the.
Yeah, it was a
nice.
very innovative trophy. It was very cool. Well, awesome.
Rob,
well,
thanks you so much for doing this.
Yeah,
really
of course.
it.
We're gonna edit this down to about 8 minutes, I hope, because I rambled on a couple.
I think we have a solid 15.
I rambled on a couple things, so that's okay. I've been drinking.
No, man,
since
your ramble
8 a.m.
is always valuable and much appreciated.
Yeah,
so
of course.
thank you so much.
And thank you for the incredible gifts from New York festivals.
Scott
I'm
Rose,
gonna put it on for people. Now check this out. Okay.
Oh yeah.
What do you want? Camera 1, camera 5?
The close up right here.
Close up.
Yeah.